There we go.
Reading.
Yes. Everyone, it is my esteemed pleasure to introduce you to a friend of mine, colleague in all things mystery arts, the Gothic magician known as Vlad. Vlad, thank you for coming on to Poe's Magic Academy and agreeing to be here and making a rare virtual appearance. Right now, by the way, there is a special supernatural filter that allows Vlad to manifest on camera. Without it, clearly he would be invisible. Oh, we have a friend coming in to say hi.
Greetings.
Yes.
Yeah, Vince stole that from William Castle called Spectrovision.
You know what? We could use this format and have and play horror movies and watch them together. That'd be a lot of fun. We should do that one day. Put a vote in the comments section if you would like to see Vlad host horror movies here on Poe's Magic Academy and the Poe's Magic YouTube channel. There's I don't want to know what's in that goblet right there. I'm sure it's unpleasant.
You didn't know her.
If you remember, you can ask. Just a reminder about the format of the show. You can ask questions at any time. We'll get to them when we can. But make a comment in the comment section through YouTube and Facebook, and we will view your comments and bring them up. Frankie waves hi to everyone. And Damien Mundane says, yes, he would definitely want to see a Vlad hosted horror movie. So my suggestion is the first film would be House on Haunted Hill. Oh, but he has a suggestion actually. Start with a showing of Witchfinder General. Yep. Or General is what he says. Yes, General. I know you meant to put the E in there. Vlad, thank you so much for coming on. We're off to a great start already because we have special requests for you to be on here again. But I should let everyone know it's very expensive to have this filter running, so we're going to make it worth its while to have it on there. But thank you for coming on today. Really appreciate it. We're going to be talking about Gothic magic, bizarre magic, probably vampires at some point. I can't imagine why that topic would come up. Yeah. But so tell everyone a little bit about yourself, what you do in regards to the mystery arts.
I was worried when you said tell everybody a little bit about myself. I was like, how long is the show, being that we'd have to start back in 1431? But
I guess why I clarified.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah. I, unlike other performers of our like, did not start in magic as a magician. I started as working in a haunted attraction. I was a special effects makeup artist, and I worked on building atmosphere, doing lighting, doing theming, working on 50-50 illusions, things like that. And the gentleman that ran the place said, well, you're designing illusions, you might want to actually become a magician. And he goes, I actually know someone that you would get along well with. And I said, well, to be a magician, don't you have to be brought out to the sacred grove by candlelight, or be the seventh son or the seventh son of the seventh son? And they're like, no, you go to meetings. Like, will there be donuts? So he introduced me to a gentleman named Jeff McBride.
I heard of him.
Yeah. And The interesting thing was, at this point in time, I'm not a magician, but he introduced me to Jeff, and I got along, and he goes, I'm thinking about doing this thing called Mystery School. And the first one is going to be an invitation only before we even announce it to anyone else. And I want you to be part of it. And I said, I've only even explored doing magic for about a year because I had to start from scratch. I didn't do kid shows and things like that and transition to doing strange and unusual magic. I've done strange and unusual magic from the very beginning. So Jeff said, well, I want you to be part of this. And I go, okay, so who's going to be there? he goes, well, some people that are good friends of mine is going to be Mundaka and Vito Lupo and Lisa Mena and Jade and, Eugene Berger and Max Maven. And I'm like, oh, I've heard of these people. I don't really know who they are because I'm just starting in magic. So I knew all of those people as friends first before I found out of their hierarchy in magic. So we started, exploring things at mystery school about why one wants to be a magician and how does the audience perceive you and all kinds of interesting things like that. So it sort of tweaked my perception of what is expected in a magic performance and how to deliver a magical experience to an audience. So all of the things that I started to create, I had to go back and learn the techniques to bring forth the illusions that I wanted to do. And I found out later on about bizarre magic because I sort of and it was the very, very beginning of it because it was right before Spirit Theater came out. And I said, this is what I've been seeking all along. And you people just kept telling me, well, look into mentalism. And I'm like, I don't want to do mentalism because I don't want to carry a clipboard. I'm like, I want to do strange and unusual, creepy things. They go, oh, there's no such thing as that. Except for some Animan things and possibly Dr. Jax and maybe some Bascom Jones things. But there's not really and I'm like, you people just don't know about it. Here it is. Eugene Berger's writing about it. So instead of doing bizarre, I decided, because of my interest in vampires for obvious reasons, that the persona of a vampire hunter wouldn't work well, nor would someone from Miskatonic University, or I didn't perceive myself as a sorcerer. So I created the term Gothic magic, because I drew from Vincent Price movies and Bela Lugosi and things like that, and Stoker and Shelley and Byron and all of those gentlemen. And I combined it with my style of magic. So there we came up with a Gothic magic.
Wow. And that is how Gothic magic began.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Yes.
So is there any other influences, for that people can look into? I mean, obviously it didn't come to you, and besides yourself, what kind of other contemporary performers do you think people should be directed to get examples, or are there any currently?
There are different people that are doing they're bringing forth their own personas.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the first thing that you should probably do if you're interested in this art form at all is either come to Bizarre Hauntings or East Coast Spirit Sessions, or if you're in the UK, look Dan Baines up and go to Doomsday. Unfortunately, that's not going to once again happen this year because of situations beyond everyone's control. But go to one of those places and start to feel out where you might belong and ask questions and sit and chat with people. And everyone is warm and welcoming, except for me. But there's a reason that I'm not warm, but talk to people and ask them questions. And no one, I have yet to meet anyone at either East Coast Spirit Sessions, Bizarre Hauntings, or Doomsday, that if you ask a question to honestly and with a true heart, that they will push you away or not spend any time talking to you. They will all embrace you and trying to lead you on the path to better yourself and become the performer you want to be.
Yeah, I agree with that. I've been to all those places as well. Of course, East Coast Spirit Sessions and Bizarre Hauntings, you've had your hand in helping create specifically. And of course, if you're interested in those, they have their websites. This East Coast is it eastcoastspiritsessions.com, and it's bizarrehauntings.com, obviously.
Mhm.
So yeah, check those out. I'm sure they'll have it. There's a newsletter for both. So
That's
far, Bizarre Hauntings.
more of an ongoing one for Bizarre Hauntings than there is for East Coast Spirit Sessions, but
Yeah. So yep. Yeah. But yeah, but you at least subscribe to it so you can have updates so you know when they're going to be releasing information on what's going on. Yeah. But Bizarre Hauntings, you can go there now. There is we're pretty optimistic about everything being fine for August. That's looking good, or at
or
least
will be
realistically optimistic. Yeah. Yeah.
heads will roll if there is not we will not be there. We will punish people.
Yep. So tell us about bizarre magic and its influence on you. So you brought up Spirit Theater, you brought up Eugene Berger and Jeff McBride and others. So how did you first find out about bizarre magic, and how did you retool that to fit your persona a little bit better?
I The first real brush with it was during long discussions with Eugene Berger at Mystery School, and he knew what I wanted to do and what I was trying to push forth. And he said it really was a shame that you never got to meet Tony Andruzzi, because I think that you really would have gotten along well with him, and you people probably would have been kindred spirits. And later on, Eugene actually gave me his copy of the grimoire and the scroll that had been given to him from Tony Andruzzi, and he said that Tony would have wanted you to have these.
Wow.
He passed them on to me, and he's like, which meant a lot to me, because for a gift that Tony gave to Eugene, and Eugene to then pass that on to me, it was sort of like passing on the mantle of Thurston. It was for Bizarre Magic. But,
Yeah, everyone in the comment section has a story like that. Feel free to reach out to us. Oh, wait a minute, you probably don't.
hmm.
Real, maybe a couple of people watching might have
Oh.
stories similar to that. But
One of the fun things that when we were doing Mystery School, when I was sort of tasked with bringing Eugene and Max Maven to Mystery School, because they wanted to take a side trip to a carnival in Poughkeepsie, New York. So I took them to the carnival and roamed around Poughkeepsie in a carnival with Max Maven and Eugene Berger and Scott Hitchcock. And when I first met Max, it was right around the time when everybody was sort of really afraid of Max, because he didn't really speak to a lot of magicians.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had him in the back seat of my car, and I said, so how am I supposed to address you? Is it Mr. Maven or what? And he sort of looked at me with, the Max look, and he went, no, Max is fine. But I could hear by the chuckle that, like, he wasn't used to someone directly going sort of like, so what am I supposed to call you?
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So you said Vincent Price and similar horror movies that he has been in. Is there been any other?
Lugosi too. Lugosi more for I think Vincent Price was more the actual acting and his delivery, and Bela Lugosi for me, it wasn't so much the delivery, it was more of the actual facial expressions and the body movements that I like to analyze. That it was just because it was sort of just a glance that Bela Lugosi would have, and sort of this, and just sort of like glimpse, like looking into his face, and it was just sort of, I mean, all of the early horror films that were black and white, Karloff and Lugosi and some of the other greats, they had minimal makeup, but I mean, when you watch the facial expressions of Boris Karloff looking up into the skylight as Frankenstein and glimpsing a sort of a little shaft of light and sort of like reaching up as if to try and glance like what was outside of his cell. That's just sort of a something that a skilled actor has to bring forth. which I think that a lot of like bizarre magicians could learn from, is because all of those films, they didn't have millions of dollars of special effects. It was lighting and acting and black and white, like sort of grayscale, and it made the most of it. That's why the Frank Langella Dracula Broadway production is so spectacular, gory one, because the entire set is black and white with like a little touch of red someplace there. You know, but
Wow. So the lately though, you've been doing lectures and workshops and events and that sort of thing, talking about developing your persona, uh,
mhm.
and why don't you a lot of people ask questions about that, the difference between character and persona, developing that, having a stage presence, you know, uh, should I develop a character? Should I do voices? Should I dress up and that sort of thing? These are very difficult skills to acquire, and it's taken you years to develop that yourself. Do you have any advice for people that are considering developing a stage persona or character for their performances?
Like I said, spending a lot of time like with Eugene and things at mystery school. One of the great things was, Eugene paid me a great compliment, and he said, when you designed your persona, I don't know if you did it on purpose or not. He said, but you've designed a character that can grow old with you. It's not something that will not work, and that's one of the things that people, they want to be 20 years old. Not that they want to be 20 years old, but a lot of times they just are. And they want to do a character as they're an old professor from Miskatonic University.
Mhm.
No, no, nobody believes that. No, no one believes that you were in the archives of like Arkham for many years, and unless you're Benjamin Buttons and you're aging in reverse, you need to find something that fits you. And once you design that persona or character, you need to fully explain and like to yourself and explain and explore like what the parameters are, and understand like there are many different tricks that work well for other people. But once you know your character, you have to realize that they may not work for you. Like there's no reason for me, unless there's an underlying story, for me to want to do a coin trick. Like an ancient aristocratic vampire has people that take care of his money for him. Like we don't carry pocket change. The only reason that we would have a coin would be as a trophy or a memento of something. If it was a coin that had the date of the Titanic, or if it was a coin that was left by the side of one of the Ripper victims, or follow the lineage wherever you want to go with it. But there needs to be a backstory to it, and you need to know that for yourself and believe it before the audience will believe it. Everything that you come out on stage and start to explore with the audience, you as a performer need to believe 100%, or else they will believe none of it.
Mm.
And it's like that you go, well, you don't really believe that. Yes, during the performance you need to believe it. Otherwise, don't do that story. If you can't sell it, don't do it. Because if you falter and there's a red flag in there, then it destroys the whole illusion. If I have a cross on my stage someplace or in my performance, I need to address that and make a comment about it, because the audience in the back of their mind is already deciding how will he react to that cross. And I'll usually make a comment to go, oh, these things don't work unless you believe, or by the way, I'm not Catholic. It's like, you need to sort of address those, because all of the audio, they might not come right out and say it, but those things will trigger sort of a thing of a little set of dominoes in their mind. And if they don't believe one, they may not believe the next thing. And then all of a sudden, at the end of the show, your whole well crafted performance is torn apart because you skipped something that was meaningful to the audience, but you missed.
Lothar says hi, by the way.
Greetings. Greetings from the Great White North.
We have a question for you. So, Alexander, you're going to have to specify. So he says, can you do Zoom shows with Gothic Bizarre Magic? Now, do you mean can Vlad do Zoom shows, or do you think that Gothic Magic will translate to a Zoom show? And so, if you don't mind, please expand upon your question. Do you think that Zoom shows can be done through? Are you asking for Zoom, or if Vlad can do it, or both? So while we're waiting for him, why don't we just ask that question to you? One,
Do it, or can I, or will I do them?
yeah.
The truer answer is, will I do them? No. And the reason is, for me, a lot of my show is interaction. And if I can't sense the audience, I can't touch the audience. A big part of like me being on stage is when I bring someone up and I can tell that they're a little uneasy, I'll use my body and sort of move closer to them. And they'll usually move away. And then I move closer again. And then they'll move away. And it's just sort of one of those, it's like making use of moments. And I don't really, because in the back of my mind, and I know there are like well-versed entertainers that are doing well, like Vince and Paul and David Parr and a lot of other performers that are doing very well with these shows. But for me, I feel that I'm competing against, Eli Roth by trying to do this on a computer. So I just don't want to really do that. I would rather come live into your living room and spook you in person versus trying to do it over a screen.
Yeah. Now, to elaborate on it, do you think it's possible for someone else to do a Gothic Magic show?
Well, I don't know if anybody else that's doing Gothic Magic except for me, but
yeah.
You could do a Bizarre Magic show, sure. I mean, you need to know how to craft the moment, and the skills that you have learned the hard way doing these type shows have to be brought into account. And I think this type of show also, you have to know a little bit about filmmaking to be able to know the craft of what's in frame and what's not in frame, and how to use the angles and things like that. You need to use the craft of the filmmaker as well as the magician to make the most out of doing a Bizarre Magic show, because you're losing the intensity of, wow, what is that he's holding? It's really spooky. And if I'm in front of you, it's much more deadly than if I'm separated by a screen.
Well, I guess you would have to, if you're trying to actually scare them, you would have to use what's effective in horror movies.
Sure.
So, and I think that would, I've been doing virtual seances myself, and I've gotten very, very good reactions from that so far.
But Vince, there are a lot of people out there like you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, any other questions
Here's a compliment for you. I know you don't know how to take those. I know, but
there are always pieces that can be presented, but the overall experience will never be as wonderful as when done in person. Yeah, I think that's that's generally accepted. But right now the big topic, of course, and Lothar, you're correct. It's always better in person. What we have right now is this. So it's either do this or not perform, basically. Although there are some people putting on fairly good social distance stage shows, I've delved in that a little bit myself in the past few months, in which people are spread out, socially distanced apart, wearing masks. And a stage show, of course, means that you yourself are far away from everyone. So that's a possibility for the pandemic performer currently.
Yeah.
But it's either those or this basically, or something similar. So Zoom, this is of course the StreamYard application, which we're using right now in order to stream to Facebook and YouTube presently. And in order to do this interview, it allows us to do all these graphics and this really nice presentation.
There's never going to like take the place of, even not as a show, but walking the cobblestones of Salem, Massachusetts, or wandering through the cemetery in Baltimore where Edgar Allan Poe is buried, or wandering with Lothar on a ghost tour, or walking the 516 stairs of Whitby. It's sort of.
I thought it was 1,000.
Yeah, well, there's 516 each way. So.
That's right. Yep.
In the rain.
Mm-hmm. So do you feel okay about talking about what you're currently working on, your next big project for your next show, or is that still top secret?
I have a couple of them that I'm working on. I know the one you keep asking about, but there's one is sort of ghost children, which is all kinds of strange and unusual dark things with children, because we all know spooky children are just even more spooky.
I agree.
And the other one is actually collecting, and they're not recreations, reacquiring artifacts which are from scenes of crimes, personal objects, different things, collecting items tied to serial killers. Because my thought is, we all talk about, amongst the bizarrists, we sort of sit around and go, what's the darkest effect you've ever done? And my thought was, well, what if we bring you into a room and I sit you down with a drawing that was done by Richard Ramirez and a piece of the brick that was from the apartment that Jeffrey Dahmer did his crimes in, and a lot of other different serial killers, and we sit forth and try and do a seance to contact possibly one of them, because all of these items are tied to them. What would happen if one of them or all of them made their presence known? And none of this is to glorify them, because I know that's a concern with a lot of other people. They're like, well, those people committed crimes and the victims should be the ones that are dressed more. Yes, they should. But one has to not let these crimes sort of fall by the wayside and let them go unknown, because we don't want them to ever happen again. We don't want a Gacy to happen again. We don't want a, Jeffrey Dahmer or any of these other people, to happen again. And if we can alert people to the details and sort of use it as a traveling museum plus, a entertainment factor, then I think that's, putting their crimes into frame of where they should be historically.
I like this one because it's at the world famous
Dracula Museum
in Whitby, England. World famous because of how excellent it is.
We went there. It's a recommendation of Paul Voudini. So.
Yeah, that's right. It's not quite the experience I thought it would be.
Sort sort of disappointed that, here it is, Whitby, England, and I had to really go above and beyond to find meat pies. I was led to believe in Sweeney Todd that meat pies were all over England. That Mrs. Lovett had made a big thing of them, and you could find meat pies all over. And there was only one place on the boardwalk of Whitby that actually had meat pies.
C'est la vie.
Yeah.
So don't forget, everyone, you feel free to ask questions.
Did we frighten them?
or make requests about anything you would ask the Gothic magician Vlad. There we go. Thoughts on mainstream magicians cashing in on bizarre magic. Example: a comedy magician released a tarot card effect.
I mean, for me, I don't think you should pick up a tarot card unless you can tell me what that card actually means and understand and respectfully frame it because it's sort of like doing a paddle move with a crucifix. It's Easter, it's not Easter, it's Easter, it's not Easter. You need to sort of understand that the tarot are meaningful to a lot of people. I know we get into these things about there's 800 billion different definitions of what that card is, but give me an explanation of what that card means before all of a sudden you decide to do, some kind of twisting the aces with tarot cards.
Yep. I think it depends, Frankie. I think it depends on the approach that the mainstream magician is doing. When it's mainstream magician does bizarre magic, if it's done well, if they're a good performer and good entertainer, they are nevertheless, by delving into it even temporarily, bringing attention to this category in magic. As long as it's presented well and it doesn't misrepresent bizarre magic. One of the things that me and Vlad talk about a lot, in fact, we've talked about it with other magicians in bizarre magic, is that right now there is a renaissance of narrative, unique storytelling magic. Whenever someone does storytelling narrative, or it doesn't even have to be spooky. Spooky, of course, is right up our alley, and we love that sort of thing. But it doesn't have to be spooky; it just has to be a narrative aspect that has a meaning. All the props and effects have purpose, and it's unique and different, and not like something that they got out of a box. It just read the pattern from the instructions. That's bizarre magic. So if they're doing it like that, if they're doing it, representing it well, I'm okay with it. If they're just doing it, and one thing I hear over and over again lately, and no offense to Vlad, of course, is that it's all about blood and guts. Now, but the thing is, like, even in Vlad's show, blood and guts rarely makes an appearance. Might be referenced, you might hear about it, but you're not going to have. It might be something that looks like blood on stage, but you're not going to have like pools of guts and blood all over the place, and that sort of thing. It's a misrepresentative, and obviously something that people in magic don't know what they're talking about when they keep repeating that rhetoric over and over again. The
important thing for me is, like, how are you presenting it?
Yeah.
If you're true to it and you go into it respectfully and you do it maybe to learn more about it, like that might be your first exploration of storytelling magic. As long as you do it respectfully, that's fine. But if you're going to piss on it, don't do that. Don't make fun of people that are doing like sideshow magic, or I don't even want to let's not use the term magic with it. If you're doing sideshow, you're doing sideshow. That's it. Do it the way it's supposed to be done, and do it separate. Don't do like a balloon animal and then do nail in the nose, like the blockhead thing. Do it as a separate thing. Don't don't do bizarre magic in the middle of your kid's show. It's just do storytelling. Don't do bizarre magic.
That makes sense to me.
I mean, there was somebody that actually put out, and I forget the gentleman's name. Might have been Terry something, but through Flora, he actually did a bizarre magic children's show. And they sold it as a VHS tape for a while on how to do a bizarre magic children's show. But he did the character sort of as like a mad scientist. So,
yeah, I do one children's show a year because it is for the Marriott Hotel in Bethany Beach, Delaware, and I do it because they pay too good to turn down, basically. But even in that case, it's a bizarre magic show. I mean, of course, I tone everything down. It's not. I'm not telling them ghost stories. That. Well, actually, it's not entirely true because it is a ghost pirate show, but it's handled well and carefully, not to scare the kids. That they have fun and that sort of thing. But it's still a bizarre magic show. Whatever I do, it's bizarre magic.
What's wrong with scaring the kids?
Well, the parents complain.
Oh.
Yeah. So Frankie, does that cover your question or comment? There's a delay. But anyway, yeah. So once again, if you have any more questions for Vlad about the developing persona, bizarre magic, Gothic magic, feel free. Yep. Yeah, kinda, he says. Yeah. So yeah, Frankie's a magician and a big fan of bizarre magic. He, I met him. He's good friends with Paul and the multiple Pauls in magic, and a few other people.
That's the biggest thing. Like that's part of the things when you work on your persona is, I mean, there are certain things that I've sort of made. I don't want to say painted myself into a box, but I've created delineated lines of what I will not do as far as a performer. Like certain tricks I just don't do because they don't make sense for me. Not this year. I did 10 years in Salem in Salem, but right now with all the like rules and regulations and not living in or near Salem anymore, it's just sort of not financially really feasible because most of the hotels are fairly expensive. So it's just sort of financially not, when you lived, like I lived a half hour away for 10 years outside of Salem, so I could just drive in and do shows, but living in an entirely different like portion of the United States than New England anymore, it's not really financially feasible.
Well, I tell you what, Damien, you put something together, and me and Vlad will drive up, make arrangements. He can make a pit stop from where he lives at the haunted library. I'll stack up some books for him to sleep under, and and then we'll come up together. We'll have to figure something out. But I'd love to perform, and I haven't been in Salem for maybe 18 years or something like that, maybe longer. But yeah, I'd love to go up to Salem and perform there me and Vlad have performed together a couple of times, so several times actually. Yeah. So yeah. So we have another question from Lothar.
The last time I was in Salem, I think, was 2013 or 14. So
wow. What was your greatest inspiration to begin your journey into Gothic magic? Now, we might have covered that a little bit. Maybe Lothar missed that part. But do you have anything else you want to add on to what you said?
The magic was separate from the Gothic. The Gothic was inspired by Lugosi and, M.R. James and Vincent Price and all of the good ghost story Gothic literature. And the magic was sort of, I wanted to blend haunted attraction. I wanted to bring the feeling of walking through a haunted attraction into a magic show. And that was sort of Jeff's like clarification when he first started trying to describe my show. He used to say, it's like seeing Stephen King live. So I wanted to bring a haunted experience into people's living rooms, because people are more likely to go see a magic show sometimes than go into a haunted attraction. So if I could blend those two together, to me, I was like, well, we got a winner, but don't never turn down going to a haunted attraction if you can. Call me out as far as what?
I guess, yeah, I'm asking that question. So, Carrie, do you mean as for the supernat, like saying the magic or supernatural aspects aren't real, or or they're outing him as a vampire? So please elaborate, specify, Carrie. And no problem, Lothar. You're very welcome. It's always good to see you again, by the way. Yep. Lothar Malberg is another person to reach out for excellent bizarre magic and advice. So he's a wonderful, talented performer and a good guy on top of that. Oh, I'm sorry, Lothar. I didn't mean to tell everyone you're a good guy.
If he wasn't so far away, we'd like to go see his thing up there.
Here we go. Oh, I clicked on that one. That's next. Hold on. Not being real vampire.
I don't know. There's quite a few like actual like things that I've done that I do believe that performing does cross the line of vampiric tendencies. So, and I did spend quite a few years in the actual vampire subculture. So if they do an online search for me, they will actually come across like ties to the actual vampire subculture. So I haven't actually had anybody call me out as my lineage as far as being a vampire.
No one's yelled at you from the audience and said, "You're not a real vampire."
Yeah. And because then we get into a conversation about what do we consider real.
So. Also, having watched Vlad on multiple occasions perform over the years, I can tell you that he doesn't flat out say, "I'm a vampire" on stage. Now, we're talking about it here in the interview, that sort of thing, because mostly the audience is magicians. But he does not ever say in his show, "Hi, I'm a vampire," or I'm literally Dracula.
Yeah.
That sort of thing. It just doesn't come up because he skirts that.
I want them to draw that conclusion themselves.
Yeah. Yep. So I've had a discussion with a couple of performers in the past. I've helped with script development and persona development myself. And one of the big things I tell people is, like, if you do a time travel show, never say you're a time traveler. As soon as you say that, some of the mystery is taken away. Also, it becomes any suspension of disbelief that you're trying to create is lost. It's a fantastical concept already. So allowing their imagination to fill in blanks or come to their own conclusion will always make it a more powerful performance. All right, so we do have another question. I hope that answers your question, Carrie. Thank you very much for asking a question. What interests do you have that do not relate directly to your performing persona?
I don't know. It's hard to separate. The two have become intertwined. Horror, which is part of my persona. I might be divulging more, but I'm very interested. I'm sort of a nerd sometimes. I like comics. I like comics from like the Marvel universe to the DC universe and novels. I like theater, any good theater, even musicals. I've never performed in a musical just because I don't feel that, and it's a weird thing, because everybody goes, "Oh, well, why don't you go try karaoke?" I go, because I was never trained as a singer. And I feel, to me, that like if you're sort of belittling the skills of someone to try and mimic what they're doing by doing it. So if I had singing things, I might someday decide to do a musical, but not probably. Uh, I have done murder mysteries. Um, so theater, amusement parks, just because I like created landscapes. So it's interesting for me to go into places that have altered reality. So if you go into a place in Las Vegas, or I like these things that are artificial, just because I enjoy seeing how they create the illusion. But I suppose that ties back into my performance. So I don't know. Hmm.
Interesting. All right. Well, unless you have any more questions, I think we're about ready to wrap things up for the most part. So we'll definitely have Vlad back in the future to host horror movies. That's definitely happening now. I have decided. For so interesting to note this on that topic is that StreamYard just added the feature to share YouTube videos, and a lot of these classic horror films are in the public domain and available on YouTube. You just literally put in the link, and it just share it in a side by side, kind of like when I brought up Vlad's, you know, website up on the screen. We would share the screen with a larger video format. And if you remember when we had watched the Houdini video several shows back, that's something we can definitely do. And I think it would be right on, right on target for your personality to watch House on Haunted Hill. Night of the Living Dead, for example, is public domain horror movies we can watch safely without having to worry about a copyright strike against us.
I sort of also want to sort of give a shout out, just because sometimes people wonder if they're gonna get involved in bizarre magic. Where do I, what vendors can I go to actually find items that would be good for me to start exploring bizarre magic? Well, you could first start with Vince. Vince has some lovely items that
Yeah.
he
You can find me my ebooks on library.com.
yeah, I actually did the Gloomy Sunday seance, which was a lot of fun for me, and I don't know about for the rest of the people, but
I think I heard nothing but good things about it. It's my hardest seance script I've ever written, which is the Gloomy Sunday seance. Requires a certain degree of skill and experience to perform it correctly, and Vlad apparently did a fantastic job performing it as it's meant to do. And it's available for. Thank you for that shout out. If you're interested, I will put a link into the comments section. You can find everything on.
so for those of you that are in the UK, you have a gentleman named Blackheart who produces some wonderful items. You have Dan Baines, and you have who's from Lebanon Circle, and you have Nick Birch, who's from Dark Artifacts. In the US, we have Chris Sipes from Arcane Relics, Vic from Gemini Artifacts, Paul Prater, who's another one of our great friends.
He's been on the interviews before himself.
Yeah. And in Canada, we have a good friend that comes to all of our conventions, Christopher Taylor. So all of these gentlemen produce wonderful items that you can feel comfortable. If they produce it, you're going to get a well-crafted item that's not going to let you down. So, I mean, think about writing your biography when you want to do these things, and know who you are in your character. Write a backstory for your character, because then when you're on stage, you'll feel more comfortable performing that. There won't be any sort of weird things Harry said before, has anybody called me out? No, because I think during part of the things they actually believe. So just keep the illusion going until the lights go down, and and beyond. I mean, I sort of, Vince a lot of times says, I don't know that there's that much difference between you on stage and off stage.
Mm-hmm.
So Yep, Frankie was talking about Blackheart. I just got a delivery from Blackheart today. So
Fantastic.
so I mean,
Well, everyone, thank you so much for checking in with me and Vlad. And
no,
remember to send your blood donations to Vlad via Transylvania X. It is the regular standard post office is pretty messed up right now. So, other than that, thank you everyone for coming to another one. Next week we're going to have Cara Hamilton from the UK talking about witchcraft and magic and sorcery. Thank you everyone for coming on. Who's been on before? Thank you, Vlad, again for coming on tonight, and thank you all for watching and viewing and asking questions. You've all been absolutely wonderful. Have a good night. Thank you again, Vlad.
you're welcome. Pleasant screams.